Hello, Calvary students. I am Pastor Jerry Ornelas from up here in New Haven, Connecticut, and my friend and your pastor, Jacob Mock, has asked me to do this Thursday's devotion. And we'll be looking at Psalm chapter 23, a very familiar psalm, but a very wonderful and encouraging psalm. And due to time, we're only going to look at verse 6, but we'll be referencing the rest of the chapter as we meditate on this wonderful passage. So, verse 6. David says, "Surely goodness and loving kindness, or goodness and mercy, according to your translation, will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So, a question for you. How can David, or how does David, come to such a wonderful conclusion that two things will be sure about his life, that goodness and mercy will follow him, and that he will dwell in the house of the Lord forever? How does he come to such a profound conclusion? And how can you and how can I come to that exact same conclusion? And I believe David answers this question pretty simply. He looks at you, he looks at me, and he says, "Christian, don't look at your present situation, look at the past. And the God who provided for you then and the God who protected you back then is the same yesterday, today, and forever." And that's what David says. He says that God was or should I say, was his provider, and that God was his protector. So let's look at those two things. David says that the Lord was his shepherd, and that because of this, he shall not want. Or another way to put that, he lacks nothing. To have God as your shepherd, to have God as your friend, to have God as your God, in and of itself means this, that you lack nothing. You lack absolutely nothing essential to your spiritual well being. Absolutely nothing. And David concludes that. David goes even further and he says, "It was God who made him lie down in green pastures," a symbol of peace, a symbol of rest. Likewise, he led him beside quiet waters. It was God who was the one doing that, not David himself. David himself says it was God who restored his soul. This idea of restoration, you've experienced something just like this in the physical realm. Recall those times where you were outside on a hot Savannah day in the middle of July, and you were running about in the field and you became thirsty, and you took a glass of water, you drank it. And the moment you drank all the water, what happened? Restoration. Your physical body became vibrant again. And David knew something about not simply being physically thirsty, but being spiritually thirsty. David knew what it was like to be alone, and David knew what it was like to doubt God. David knew what it was like to feel far away from God. David knew what it was like to be depressed and to be confused. And David says, God came through in the clutch and God restored his soul every single time. God guides him in paths of righteousness for his namesake. Then the text takes a nosedive. And David says, even in the darkness, even during those moments where life seems to make no sense whatsoever, those moments where you are absolutely afraid of the future, or you may be depressed about your past or your present. David says, "Christian, I've been there, and God was with me, and God guided me, and God comforted me. And that even this path downward is a path of righteousness. And even here, God protects." So what we have is God as a provider, God as a protector. And then David looks at us and says, "It is because of that that I can say, surely or certainly upon the evidence, and the evidence is clear, that goodness and mercy will follow me, will follow you all the days of my life, and you will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And I love that analogy of following you all the days of your life. That these two things, goodness and mercy, will follow. Well, another and maybe even a better translation of that word follow is that God will pursue. God will pursue you all the days of your life. God is a provider, God is a protector, and God as a pursuer. And I also love how the text says that it's goodness and mercy that will is in a sense behind him, chasing him. That same idea of pursuit. Let me give an example. Imagine, if you will, if you were walking down the street carrying a bunch of stuff, whatever it may be. And as you're walking, you were dropping trash along the way because you couldn't carry it all. In a real sense, you were making a big mess. And as you're walking, you look behind you, and there was this one person picking up all the mess and throwing it all away to make sure that the mess that you left was cleaned up. Christian, I don't know exactly what you're going through right now. I'm sure it's something. It may be deep, it may be hard. Life is hard. But one thing I can promise you, one thing based upon the word of God itself, is that God is your shepherd. And because of that, he will pursue you with his goodness and mercy all the days of your life. God is your provider, God is your protector, and God will pursue you with his love. Amen. Have a good day, guys.